Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, weekly show we do every Friday. My name is Brandon, social media manager here at Trust Machines, also joined by Longstreet.btc, Sean. Happy Friday, sir.
Happy Friday, Brandon. Good to see you. What's going on this week?
You. Yeah, lots happening this week. We normally have Kate here. She might be joining us, but she is in Denver for all the ETH Denver festivities that are happening this week. Conference season, I guess, is kind of officially kicking off, it feels like, with ETH Denver. Lots of stuff that's going to be happening over the next, few months. Feel like ETH Denver is kind of the first really big one. Maybe like there was last week I guess there was like ones in Consensus, Hong Kong happened. But for me, ETH Denver kind of feels like the start of conference season.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much enthusiasm. I'm seeing a lot of people, instead of like touching grass, they're touching snow. So they're getting some time on the slopes in first before they're hitting all the main events and the side.
Man, I'm jealous. I am a skier, not a snowboarder, but I haven't been in I don't even know. It's maybe been like 6 or 7 years since I've been up to the snow to go skiing. So
nice.
Definitely feeling some FOMO for those that are up there with their ski gear. And we're seeing a lot of photos and a lot of really cool merch and swag and stuff that's, getting passed around in Denver this week. Yeah, it just looked like a lot of fun. If Kate doesn't join today, I'm sure we'll get a really nice recap from her when she joins us next week again. Yeah, lots of stuff. Even though it's kind of like a big kind of conference week and everyone's been traveling, there has been still a lot of news this week, feels like.
Yeah, always, man. There's always a bunch to get to, and you've lined up a great docket of things to talk about here. So yeah, should we start with the usual, the reminder for everyone to retweet the space and head into Trust Machines and product news.
Yeah, please do retweet the space, share it out. Yeah, that would be awesome. But yeah, let's get into it. We've had a few pretty big pieces of product news. So let me share my screen here just so I can not just talk about it, but show it as well. We're gonna bounce over here to leather. First one that's very exciting. We talked about it a few weeks ago on the show when Kate and I were both in Barcelona with the leather team, hacking this out, but we finally launched the long-awaited transactions feature for notifications. So when you send and receive Bitcoin, you will now get a notification for it, which is very, very cool. This will be extending to Stacks eventually as well. Rolled it out for Bitcoin first. One of the main reasons for that is because Stacks is so fast, the need to be notified for when you send something and it gets confirmed is just not really necessary because it's almost instant. But certainly having those receiving notifications are going to be real handy. So that'll be coming for Stacks as well. But for now, whenever you receive Bitcoin or when you send Bitcoin and it gets confirmed in a block, you'll get a notification for it, which is really cool.
Nice, because it's not always guaranteed. Like a block is 10 minutes, right? But it might not be picked up in 1 or 2 or even 3 blocks sometimes, especially depending on how like frugal you're trying to be on the sats per VByte. So it's handy. Yeah, you want to know. I mean,
yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people in here, there's a lot of people moving around BTC this week for sBTC. There's a lot of people who are moving Bitcoin around for like purchasing ordinals and things like that. So yeah, this is a great feature.
Super great feature. Yeah, I'm excited. I've received a few of them, and every time that I get one, it just like makes me smile. Like I'm just happy that we have this feature. It's so cool. And not many wallets, especially extensions like offer this. We got shout out to Dave, who's been on the show before, gave us a nice shout out. Maybe won't read what he said on here, but he was very happy. Let's just put it that way. And he expressed his happiness in Dave's traditional style of expressing that, which was
not classroom
nice.
Appropriate. Is that what you're getting?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
But we love Dave. Shout out to Dave. But yeah, a lot more to talk about. Obviously, we're going to get into a lot with sBTC Cap-2, but just to sort of tease some of that, on the Granite side, we actually launched an NFT. So anybody that deposited any amount of sBTC this week is going to receive this NFT, this sBTC Pioneer NFT, which is sort of like our first way of rewarding early access people that are testing out Granite. So super fun. Sean, did you have the chance to test out sBTC on Granite?
Well, I haven't connected it to Granite yet. I was able to switch over, but
you got to get your NFT. You're running out of time,
man. Okay, well, how much time do we have here?
Well, so I think you might have joined already. We are taking, I think, a snapshot at the end of the day. So you have time.
Well, I know what I'm doing in 50 minutes then.
Yeah. But yeah, I think hopefully we'll see some more of these. This won't be the only NFT that we do for Granite, and hopefully we'll be able to just find some fun ways of kind of rewarding the community for doing certain things. So I guess there's the small amount of alpha that I'll kind of share on the Granite side, but
nice.
Super fun. People were pretty pumped about it. And
is this a Stacks NFT?
It is a Stacks NFT. So you'll whatever address that you deposited, sBTC is the same address, right? So you'll get that NFT sent to that same Stacks address. So yeah,
nice, man,
pretty cool. And yeah, hopefully we'll have a little bit more to share in the future. One more piece of Granite news. We launched the largest bug bounty on Stacks this week. So it's sort of like kind of putting our money where our mouth is. $50,000 bug bounty program. Again, it's the largest one on Stacks. It's larger even than Stacks itself. So that launched through ImmuneFi, which is, I think, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, bug bounty platform that's out there. You can see them right there because they're tagged. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. If you are a developer, if you are technically minded, go on there, check it out. Again, the largest one is $150,000, but there's like critical, high, medium, low tiers as well. So go see if you can break Granite, and maybe you'll get some money for it.
I know a friend of the show, Rosar, was pretty excited about this. He retweeted it and said, "Hold my beer."
I saw that. Yeah. Shout out to Rosar. Yeah, a lot of people seem to be pretty excited about it. Some people have been, just engaging with it, asking some questions. And pretty cool. One thing that is nice is we did have a question. Somebody asked about if like KYC was required to receive like the bounty if you discover, a bug and you submit it properly, and no.
Wow.
No KYC is required. So it is truly open for anybody to participate, which is very cool.
That broadens the pool to more, hacker-minded people who may not
absolutely
be.
They're the privacy minded, even if it is like somebody that's just like US based, right? Like, privacy, very important, especially for that community. So I'm pretty cool that is an option for them.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's it in terms of like product announcements, feature announcements, stuff like that. But I would love to hear how the Leather Lounge went on Tuesday. That was a really just very timely episode as well, with the sBTC cap going live pretty much right around the same time. And we had a lot of really good guests on it.
Yeah, so I was kind of just like poking in on all the various spaces starting that morning, which, I don't know, shortly before 10 a.m. Eastern, I think, was when the sBTC bridge started opening. And people started like bridging their BTC over. The Stacks DeFi show kicked off at 10, and then an hour later, Leather Lounge was live. And just the energy that day, man, was so good on X. So many good vibes. Everyone was super excited to see it happening. And this was like maybe the top lineup of guests, like all the quality of all the guests at once was pretty crazy on Tuesday for the show. We had 2 Forbes 30 under 30. That is Tycho and Jakob. So they were both on the show.
Amazing.
We had Grant, who is leading grassroots Stacks marketing endeavor. Andre Serrano, who is like one of the big architects behind sBTC. Mark from Leather was there, and Diego from Bitflow. So yeah, with all those founders and builders, we were representing Zest, Bitcoin L2 Labs, Stacking DAO, Bitflow Finance, Hermetica, and Leather Wallet. So obviously, like with all those heavy hitters, we talked about a lot of things. So we were really getting like high up perspective from Andre. And then we were like really digging into the weeds to talk about the specifics, like the different kind of flavors of putting your Bitcoin to use, right? Like you've got various degrees of yield strategy. Going farther out on the risk curve, you have more strategies on various platforms. So yeah, we talked about the marketing endeavors as well. Jakob has so many good takes about, well, actually everyone really has good takes about the kind of the road to hyper Bitcoinization and a world where the unit of account is Bitcoin. But for now, it's the US dollar. So there was just a good discussion about where we are right now on Bitcoin adoption, building on Bitcoin, and how sBTC through Stacks as the wrapper is making Bitcoin more productive. So I would say like if people listening missed it, don't wait for like the highlights to come out. Just go back and listen to the whole show. Mark's takes were great too, about like trying to find, rather than like chasing the micro trends, kind of staying the course, having and executing a plan. So like I said, man, it was a great lineup of guests.
Yeah, super, like you said, super great lineup. I think it makes so much sense for us, like as a community, to rally around Bitcoin, right? And like one SBTC equals one BTC, right? You're less worrying about like token prices. You're just focusing on Bitcoin and growing Bitcoin in Stacks. So, that translates, pretty well into this sBTC cap, which is just incredible how quickly that cap was reached. So, it's a couple months ago now, I think it was in December, we had the first cap for sBTC, where it opened up for the first time and they capped it at 1,000 BTC. So 1,000 Bitcoin bridged into the system. And it took about 2 days to do that. And then, they wanted to kind of do it slowly and methodically, right? They didn't want to just open it up for immediately, 1 million Bitcoin to enter the system. They want to test things. It's kind of a new system. They just want to make sure that nothing is going to break. So they did it slowly and thoughtfully. And just this past Tuesday, on Tuesday, they opened it up. They increased the cap from 1,000 to 3,000. So an additional 2,000 BTC was able to flow into the system. And it happened in less than 24 hours, which is just incredible. So yeah, a lot of campaigns, around that. A lot of builders launching things. We talked about, well, just on Leather Lounge, right? Pretty much everybody that was on that space is building something that has to do with sBTC or touches sBTC in some way, whether it's lending or trading or swapping or providing liquidity or, doing all sorts of things. So there's so many apps and really cool things that are relying on sBTC and more to come, right? I think like Velar wasn't on the show this week, but I know Velar is working on like trading pools for sBTC, so you can trade, directly into your meme coin of choice from sBTC. I think I think stuff like that is the future of Stacks, right? Where you are just bridging from BTC to sBTC and then using your Bitcoin, and you can use it to buy meme coins like Welsh and Nothing and Leo and all the other great ones that are out there, and you like don't necessarily have to use the STX token if you don't want to. I think like that is the future to me of this ecosystem. Curious maybe how you think about it, but that's kind of how I'm internally thinking about it.
Yeah, I remember one of the builders behind Byzantium. We were talking early on in Stacks days, And he was the first person to like push the narrative of Stacks is the gas token. That's really all it's necessary for. I think NFTs can be priced in anything. Maybe it makes sense to price it in sBTC now, but I know over the past few years, NFTs and things were always priced in whatever, 15 stacks, 70 stacks. But it may be abstracted away and just be the gas token.
Yeah, I think long term, it just makes sense to me that it would just be more aligned with Bitcoin, and things would be priced in Bitcoin versus being priced in STX. I don't know. I think it's just more of a long-term vision, right? Certainly, I think like some people, especially that are like longtime holders of STX, the token, might feel a little bit like threatened by that potentially. Again, this is just like my personal view of where things might go, but I just think it makes sense for us to just really rally around Bitcoin, right? Because that's, at the end of the day, that's why we're all here, is for Bitcoin. So,
and liquidity
yeah.
leads. You need liquidity for anything to succeed. So
absolutely,
Bitcoin has the liquidity we need. So having that like injection this week is pretty exciting for the Stacks ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely a great point. That's kind of why we're building on Bitcoin, right? Is that liquidity. That's why Stacks is anchoring to Bitcoin so strongly. So yeah, great point. I did also want to mention a couple like milestone things that happened with this new cap raise. So I think we did talk about it, and I kind of predicted that this was going, well, I didn't really need to predict it because like we kind of knew that the cap was going to get hit. But it did officially happen that first, kind of midway through the cap, Stacks flipped Bob in terms of Bitcoin bridged into the system. And then by the end of the night, after the cap had been filled, Stacks flipped Rootstock in terms of native Bitcoin bridged into the system. So Stacks is now the number 2 side system and number 3 Bitcoin layer behind Lightning, based on native BTC supply. And as you can see, I mean, there's not that much to go with flipping Liquid. They're only about like 500, 600 away.
Yeah.
And even Lightning itself is only, I think, around 1,700 away, which, I mean, just look at what happened on Tuesday, right? Stacks just, increased its supply by 2,000 BTC in 24 hours. And it's capped, it's currently capped at that amount right now. In a few months, right, when we get another cap raise, I don't actually think it'll even take a few more months. I think the cap raise is happening again in a month or so.
Wow.
It'll go up even higher. So I made a prediction that some people weren't very happy with, that Stacks will have more BTC bridged into it than Lightning by the end of June. And I feel like that's a safe prediction. I don't know. But I don't normally make a lot of predictions like this, but I just felt like that was like kind of a safe one to make.
I think you're a highly qualified person to make this because you understand what it means to run a Lightning channel, and you understand what it means to transact on Stacks as well. Yeah, maybe that's a hot take for some people, but I think it's inevitable. Yeah, because we need liquidity and good user experiences, right? With no loss of funds.
Yeah, I mean, there are like some good questions that kind of came from this. I was kind of having a little back and forth with Alex B on some things. He mentioned Babylon, which they have broken the Bitcoin L1 a few times in the past year with their bridge. They have over 50,000 BTC bridge into their systems. That's huge. And they're not listed on like Bitcoin layers just because they're not like that. They're doing like proof of stake. They're not tied to Bitcoin in the way that something like Stacks or Lightning is. So that's why they're not like on the list. So of course there's more layers and more things that are, not as closely anchored to Bitcoin that are much higher. But I just think from like a marketing narrative kind of perspective, I even mentioned like in one of my replies to Alex, I was like, you are way more technically savvy than I am when it comes to this stuff. But I just think like from a marketing kind of narrative perspective, like Stacks flipping Lightning in terms of like Bitcoin bridged into the system is like very strong. You could argue though, or you could question like, does that even matter? Like, obviously Lightning and Stacks are not really trying to do the same things. Lightning is just trying to really optimize for payments. Stacks is trying to, you're bridging into the system to try to do more with your Bitcoin, you're lending and you're doing all these different activities. So naturally you kind of need more liquidity in order to do those types of things compared to something like Lightning. Like, does Lightning need to have a crazy amount of like TVL into the system? It works, for payments and it's doing its thing. That's like a valid question also. Like, does this even matter? But still, I think just going back to like the narrative, I think it's still pretty interesting that this could happen pretty soon, I think.
Yeah. The momentum, additional cap up to 3,000 being met so fast in less than 24 hours was a great win. I had a question for you. So the cap is now at 3,000, but on the chart, it says like what, 3,180 something like that.
Yep.
What do you know about the extra 100 plus?
I think so. Technically, I think the official sBTC bridge is actually a little bit higher than 3,000. I'm not sure if that happened like in the very beginning or what happened there, but it is technically a little higher than 3,000. But a majority of the rest of that, because it's not just 3,000, it's like 3,100 and something Bitcoin, is Xlink and the Alex bridge. They also offer a bridge for a native Bitcoin bridge. So they're included kind of in that count as well, because they are actually using native Bitcoin in order to offer that bridge. So that's why it's a little higher than an even 3,000.
That's right. So there's Alex with Xlink, and then there's also Pontus bridge. What do you know about that?
There is, but I'm not sure if.
And that's with Bitflow.
It is, yeah. I don't think that's included in at least how Bitcoin Layers is measuring it. I'm not actually sure the reason there off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's a valid reason why. But that's interesting. I wonder how much has actually been bridged in that way.
Yeah, I'm curious too.
Yeah. Good question.
Well, should we move on to?
I don't know.
Yeah. Should we go on to industry news and talk about? I guess some people are kind of upset this week. What's going on? What's happening?
Yeah, I wanted to revisit our old friend, the Crypto Fear and Greed Index, which I checked yesterday, and it was at 10 out of 100. I think is the highest. So 10 is pretty bad. We're checking it right now, and it's at 16, which isn't that much better. But certainly a lot of fear in the markets right now. It is currently set to extreme fear, and we're seeing a lot of red and orange, and not green. Looking at it though, it's like I feel like it's flipped kind of quickly. Even looking at the chart here, you can see last month we were in green territory, and we were at 72 out of 100, and we were in full on greed season. Things have gotten dark quickly. I don't really know why. Like, is there like there never is usually like one specific, reason why like markets, swing back and forth one way or the other on these types of things, but it just doesn't feel like there's been any like crazy, like bad catalyst. There's actually been so much good news this week that it's really surprising to see us kind of at these levels.
Yep. I mean, has anything changed about Bitcoin? There's still going to be 21 million of them. right? There's nothing
Certainly.
changed about the narrative. But I do think that there's a lot of individuals who were getting in the 90 plus, 100 plus range, and they didn't sell above 100 because they were expecting 120, 150, whatever, 500,000 this year, right? So maybe they were sleeping, expecting, President Trump to pump our bags and everything happening at the right time for price to keep going up. So maybe there's some reason. Let me try sharing my screen too, because I've got this. A tweet from Joe. This is actually my first time going here, so let me see if this is good. There we go.
All good. Yeah, shout out to Joe. We've been taking a look at some of the Lunar Crush stuff as well. They do some really cool, for those that aren't familiar with Lunar Crush, they do some really cool stuff with social analytics, more specifically for like sentiment. And they have some really cool charts here on tracking like sentiment compared to price and compared to a lot of other different metrics that they track kind of in real time. So really, really cool resource that's been around for quite some time. Lunar Crush has been doing it for a while. Yeah. So the point he was making today, you just mentioned metrics, right? So fear and greed, RSI is leaning over into oversold now, relative strength index. And now if you think about social sentiment as well, we've dipped down to 69%. The last time it was this low is 68% on August 5th. Last year, and Bitcoin's price was 54,000. And a few months later, which felt like a few years, a few months later, we had right around the election time. Look how much correlated that is with the election. The price started going up again, and then sentiment was positive. But yeah, it's no doubt that this pullback, it's a serious pullback. It's nothing like outside of the 4-year cycle range. What are we on? What do you think it is right now? 30 something percent retracement right now? I think so. Yeah. It's between recently, like 20 and 30, I think. Yeah. That's not even that bad. That's not that bad. It's certainly not that bad compared to, what we've seen, but kind of depends on when you've entered the market, like you said, right? I feel like we haven't done a poll in a little bit of time, but I feel like in the past year, I think we did it on like Leather or something, and we asked people like what year they entered the market, and there was a lot of 2021s, a lot of 2022s. There's a lot of people that have not been here for more than a couple of years, which I was surprised by. But that's great. I'm just like, obviously more people entering the system, entering the markets is a great thing. But yeah, that's the thing. That over the past 12 months, we've had the ETFs. So it just opens the door for a lot more people. Price going up makes the narrative go up, and that makes more people know about it, and more people come in. You have more people coming in when the price is high than you do at the bear market, which means that they are exposed to downward pressure on the price. And speaking of the Bitcoin ETF outflows, it's been pretty brutal this week. That's the other part of it is like, people are selling, futures are down, and there's a lot of ETF outflows. So yeah, it's rough. If you're feeling the week, you're feeling the pullback in Bitcoin, you're not alone. A lot of people are feeling this. Yeah. I don't know, just zoom out, try to hold on if you can, never invest more than you can afford to lose. Use Granite so you don't have to sell your Bitcoin. Right. Brandon's not financial advice. Yeah, that's my pretty safe financial advice that I can give. Yeah. But yeah, let's get into some more news. We already talked about obviously the sBTC cap getting raised was big. A couple things for kind of public company news. Strategy has, of course, acquired more Bitcoin this week, but this one was massive. They acquired 20 for almost $2 billion. So all the people that were selling their Bitcoin this week, Michael Saylor was just happy to gobble that all up and acquire it from them. So they now hold 499,096 Bitcoin. So they're almost at 500,000 Bitcoin, which is just insane. Do you remember how much they are planning on spending on buying Bitcoin in the somewhat near future? They have a plan, right? It was the 21 and 21, or something branded with 21. Is it
Yeah,
$21 billion worth of
I think
Bitcoin?
so. Yeah, if I had to make that guess,
Yeah.
because I think they're kind of burning through that quickly, and part of the narrative is like, when strategy is finished buying, are they going to change the strategy and like, continue buying, or will they be done? And if they're not buying, who will step in?
Yeah. Well, more public companies, keep doing it. We're gonna also we can maybe jump around a little bit, but this came out this morning that BlackRock just added its IBIT Bitcoin ETF to their model portfolio for the first time, which is huge. So a lot of people, especially for with 401ks and stuff like that, they're not buying individual stocks. They're buying like index funds and baskets of assets. So the fact that BlackRock is sort of adding IBIT to their sort of model portfolio is going to almost immediately create a lot of buy pressure for Bitcoin, because suddenly anybody that's using BlackRock as their model, and when they're just allocating into their 401k, is going to begin to buy Bitcoin with it, which is pretty incredible. So yeah, I guess it's a small subset of their like entire kind of model portfolio, but still kind of opening up the potential avenue for some pretty heavy demand there, which is a pretty big deal.
Nice. And you mentioned more companies buying Bitcoin. What's going on with Fold here?
Fold acquired another 10 BTC. We talked about them last week. They went public, so they are now over 1,000. They have 1,010 BTC on their balance sheet. So congrats to Fold for continuing to stack as well. And yeah, let's get into just a few more things here. So Citadel Securities is eyeing crypto now. This came out this week. Citadel Securities, they are a market maker, one of the biggest market makers out there, and they're looking basically to become a liquidity provider in crypto. And this is from an article in Bloomberg this week. Citadel has kind of steered clear of a lot of crypto stuff in the past due to this regulatory uncertainty, but as we're seeing with this new administration, there's certainly a move to make things a little more clearer. We're going to get into some other stuff later. According to anonymous sources, they're already engaging with Coinbase, Binance, and Crypto.com to become a market maker on those exchanges. And for those that don't know, what is a market maker, you might ask? They're typically an LP provider. That means that they basically offer liquidity on both sides of the trade. So, for an example, for us, that might be in like the Stacks ecosystem, right? You can, go on Bitflow and you can become a sort of market maker by staking your STX and sBTC, right? So you're sort of facilitating those trades on Bitflow to happen, for people that are trading between STX and sBTC one way or the other. And then you, as that, market maker, as that LP provider, make some amount of money, based on the spread, based on transaction fees, stuff like that. Of course, on the Citadel side, there's a little bit more complexity there, but I thought that would be maybe a good example of like describing what a market maker is. So Citadel Securities is just looking to get into the crypto trading game, which is a pretty big deal because they have just a lot of assets that they're managing.
Yeah, that's a familiar TradFi name too.
Yeah, and a big one. This one came out last week. I forgot to include it in last week, but I did want to kind of at least give some credit where credit is due. Coinbase has released their proof of reserves for cBTC. So that's a pretty big deal. Let me share my screen real quick. We can take a look at this. So cBTC, as we know, is their wrapped token. Coinbase claims that it is, of course, 1-to-1, and it is held by Coinbase, but it's backed, 1-to-1 by BTC. We can see here, looking at their website, their total reserve is 28,631 BTC, and they supply a very similar amount, 28,581 cBTC is there. So if you scroll down, you can see that there's they list all of the addresses, all of the different addresses that are holding all these different amounts of BTC that add up to that total reserve amount. We can also see it sort of broken down by network. So they currently list, we have Ethereum, Base, Solana, and Arbitrum. And this is interesting that Ethereum is so much higher than Base in terms of cBTC. I would have assumed that Base would have kind of been the leader, for their own token here. But Ethereum is at 17,000 800 cBTC versus Base is at 7,800. So Ethereum has basically 10,000 more Bitcoin in cBTC, in the form of cBTC, compared to Base, which is interesting.
Do you know what wrapped ETH is at?
Not off the top of my head. I'm sure we could find it out.
Yeah, I'm just curious how that compares, because, Ethereum, people understand, is more decentralized than Base in theory. I don't know anything about Base, but I would assume it's not on the spectrum of decentralized. It's not close to Bitcoin, obviously.
No, Base is it's a layer 2 on Ethereum that is run by Coinbase. So it is certainly more centralized than Bitcoin. I'm looking at do you mean WBTC?
Yes.
WBTC current supply is 129,000 Bitcoin, according to.
So that's still the biggest wrapped
Bitcoin layers.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sBTC, maybe we'll get there eventually.
That's right. Baby steps. We'll get there. When people, I've been thinking about this a lot, because with the BitKey, with the Bybit hack.
Yes.
I've been thinking about this, where, everyone has to be like performing at their best, right? And everyone's going to go to the best chain, whether they're looking for UX or some idealism around decentralization. But everyone has to like keep going on the race until like someone else messes up, right? So I feel like it's fine to trust a custodian or a centralized party until it's not. And then when you have like the FTXs and the Celsiuses that break down and lose users' funds, then people get educated and they're like, okay, I need to self-custody, or I need to be with a company that has proof of reserves and doesn't rehypothecate. Yeah, I think when it comes to like sBTC gaining on the others, I mean, you never know what kind of risks there are and what kind of mistakes will happen, but they are going to happen. You just don't necessarily know when. And when they do, that's when like other players shine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll continue to track kind of the different wrappers, different layers for Bitcoin, and yeah, we'll see where things go. Moving on, I think you had a slip where you mentioned BitKey, but we did actually have something with BitKey to talk about, which is why you mentioned them. They announced an inheritance feature, which I thought is really cool. And we talked a couple weeks ago about OPSEC on the show, and I did mention BitKey as one of the options for multi-sig hardware wallet. BitKey is actually managed by or owned by Jack Dorsey's Block, formerly known as Square. Obviously, they have Square, Cash App, and then BitKey as well, and that is sort of their little hardware device. And they rolled out this inheritance feature, basically, that allows you to designate a beneficiary for your Bitcoin if something, were to happen to you. And it's set up in a kind of more, non-custodial way, right? They don't have custody of your Bitcoin, but it's multi-sig. And how it basically works is you designate a beneficiary. They have the option basically to sort of trigger a withdrawal or trigger like an event that's saying like, hey, maybe this person passed away. And then that starts this timer that unlocks after 6 months. And then, if no intervention is kind of made by the owner, then that Bitcoin sort of becomes unlocked after that 6-month period. So that's kind of their way of doing it. And I think it's really cool because there's no monthly fee that's required for it. We've talked also on the show a few times, I think, about Casa, and they have an inheritance feature through their non-custodial products, but they do charge a monthly fee, where BitKey is just like a one-time fee for like their hardware device. So yeah, I wanted to give them a shout out. I own one. I bought one a couple months ago, and I've been just kind of playing around with it. I think it's pretty cool.
Nice.
But just for just it's cool to check out like different options for securing your Bitcoin. Maybe something like a BitKey or through Casa might make sense to you, the listener, if, depending on kind of how much Bitcoin you're holding and how much you're looking to, make sure that it's secure. And certainly, we're all young and healthy, but that won't be the case forever, right? So to have something like an inheritance feature for the future is definitely something to look into and to do a little bit more research on.
Well, I just watched Don't Die. So, maybe I'll live forever. It's possible, Brandon. Don't crush my dreams.
It's true. I need to watch that. I've been seeing clips of Brian Johnson on like my TikTok a lot.
Yeah.
He like shows up on there, and very interesting man, dedicating his entire life to like longevity, and it's just interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching because, you can check him out on a podcast. You can see these little clips of him, but it's never the full story, and it humanizes him. You get the backstory of like what his life was like before. It's not like a perfect system, so he's like doing a lot of testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And gathering a lot of data, but it's not like in the most academically rigorous way, right? It's kind of like Wild Wild West self-testing, but it's a great documentary. Very much of a side subject on Good for Bitcoin, but I enjoyed watching it and I was pretty inspired.
Yeah, I'll have to next time I'm on like a plane or something. I feel like that'd be a good airplane documentary to watch. But yeah, I'll have to watch that one soon. This is maybe the biggest story. I know I didn't put a lot on here just because there were so many companies that were involved, but we talked last week about Coinbase saying that that the SEC was dropping litigation for Coinbase. That officially happened this week, but we also saw Robinhood, Uniswap, OpenSea, Gemini, and Consensus all among companies that the SEC has withdrawn litigation from this week. So it's absolutely massive. It's incredible that all of this news happened this week. All of these companies that just are the backbone of like US based crypto companies, and they all are no longer being like sued, by the SEC. So it's a huge win for the entire industry, especially, crypto companies in the US.
Yeah, pour one out for Gary Gensler. I hope he's doing okay.
Do you hope he's doing okay?
No, I don't. It feels so good. So good to see just these companies winning, and there is such renewed enthusiasm around bringing innovation in crypto back to the United States when it was getting pushed away.
Yeah, and more SEC news. Also, they came out with an official statement that meme coins are not securities. So I'm gonna read the text here that I think is the most interesting. This is coming from kind of one of their staff bulletins or staff statements. It says, meme coins are typically purchased for entertainment, social interaction, and cultural purposes, and their value is driven primarily by market demand and speculation. In this regard, meme coins are more akin to collectibles. Meme coins also typically have limited or no use or functionality. Given the speculative nature of meme coins, they tend to experience significant market price volatility and are often accompanied by statements regarding their risks and lack of utility other than for entertainment or other non-functional purposes. It is the division's view that the transactions in the types of meme coins described in the statement do not involve the offer and sale of securities under the federal securities laws. So pretty big.
Wow.
That is the clarity, right? Like that is the clarity that people are asking for. Obviously, we're asking for more clarity than on meme coins, but these are the types of statements that the industry is looking for. It's like definitive, right? Like it is the division's view that transactions in the types of meme coins described in the statement do not involve the offer and sale of securities. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So pretty big news this week.
It's also the perfectly worded phrase for one President Donald Trump who released 2 meme coins. So
it certainly puts him off the hook.
Yeah. Go figure. Not
I mean,
surprised
it doesn't protect creators against fraud though. So, we've seen like the stuff with like, was it Libra, right? That happened, that a lot of people are accusing them of fraud. So, it doesn't protect you against like other laws, but it does at least say that like the meme coin itself is not a security, which is a step in the right direction. Again, there's been so much clarity and so much good news this week. It's really surprising to see the price and just the sentiment overall where things are at this week. It's pretty shocking to me.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that it might be short-lived, but like you said, the bar was so low over the last few years. But I mean, your point about clarity, it's amazing. We're getting what we need.
Pretty incredible stuff. I think that wraps it up because we kind of skipped around a little bit. I don't think I have anything else to mention here. Do we know who's going to be on Leather Lounge on Tuesday? Want to give a little preview of that?
We're about to confirm.
Okay.
Things are maybe shifting around a little bit, but it'll be about Bitcoin. It'll be about stacks. I can tell you that much. And it'll be about doing productive things with your stack again. But the week after that, we do know that Jason Meyer is going to be on the show. So he was the author of Progressive's Case for Bitcoin. And yeah, I reached out a little while ago to see how he was doing, and he's back teaching again. He took a sabbatical. He took either a half year or a full year off to kind of tour with the book, and he was doing the whole podcast series for a while. So he's been laying low, going back to like teaching life. So we invited him onto the show to talk about what he's been up to.
Going to be it's going to be wonderful, and we'll look forward to a productive conversation next week with whoever we have. I think that's a pretty safe bet that we will be talking about some way to make your Bitcoin more productive on Leather Lounge. It's a pretty safe bet, I think.
Exactly.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in today. We'll see Kate next week, and we'll hear all about ETH Denver and all the exciting stuff happening that happened this week there. But until next time, thanks so much for listening. We'll see you around.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.